Our next speaker is Ari Kaplan. He's a qualified mediator with Koskie Minsky. I hope I pronounced that right. Ari is widely known and respected as one of Canada's leading pension law experts. Counsel on some of Canada's most widely known pension cases. Ari's clients include pension fund trustees, employee and pensioner groups, private and public sector trade unions, and individuals. His practice has a plaintiff and defendant litigation focus with an emphasis on pension and benefits litigation, human rights law, and class actions. Ari Kaplan, everybody.
Thank you, Don. Thank you. Thank you very much. Can I get my clicker? So I'm a new mediator. I mediated my first case last year in the lovely province of Manitoba. It was between a certain telecom company out there, 3 trade unions, and a pensioner group. And they certainly didn't hire me for my pension skills. They did hire me for my pension skills, not my mediation skills, because I had none at the time. But I had pension experience, and I ended up being able to facilitate a $140 million workplace settlement that ended 15 years of litigation through the Supreme Court of Canada. And it's a reported decision, and I just thought that was super cool. And I said, I can do this, right? So this year I got trained with the lovely people at ADRIC, and I'm now a qualified mediator, and I'm thrilled to be part of the community of ADR going forward. So, the art and science of pension mediation, or as I call it, the very Canadian pension mediation. Are compromise and compliance compatible? That's my talk. Well, let's talk about the Canadian retirement system. That's what we need at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, don't we? That's how we get started. So the government has given us, 3 tiers for retirement security. Tier 1, the Canada Pension Plan. Everyone belongs to it, regardless. If you're employed by an employer, if you're self-employed, you can take it with you from New Brunswick to Newfoundland to BC and everywhere in between. It's a minimum level of retirement security, not sustainable, which is why we have Tier 2. And that's the space that I belong to, the workplace pension plan world. And if anyone here has a pension plan with their employer, then you're one of the 6 million lucky Canadians representing 35% of the Canadian workforce that has a workplace pension. Defined benefit plans, defined contribution plans, you've heard those terms. That's my world. Thirdly, the doctrine of individual responsibility has been with us forever, and if you don't have a workplace pension and you can't just rely on CPP, the government wants us to have our own private savings, and even fewer people have enough in their private savings in order to allow them to have a golden egg in retirement. I teach a course at University of Toronto, the law school. It's called Private Pensions, Public Responsibilities. I think the private pensions part is pretty easy, right? A pension plan, certainly one in your workplace, is part of your contract of employment. You may not ever see the pension plan text, most don't, but it's there together with any other benefits you have at work. Eye care, dental, LTD, it's all part of the bundle of rights, and this is a rights-based regime relating to what you take with you. But there are public aspects to pensions, and not just because of the Canada Pension Plan. And the fact is, and few people dispute this, is that poverty among the elderly has a direct correlation to the increased use of the healthcare system. There's a very public interest in minimizing dependence on the state in one's old age. There's a public interest in ensuring minimizing dependence on the state in one's old age. And the ecosphere of pension interests certainly reflects that, right? At its core, there's the employer-employee relationship. The pension plan is part of the contract, like I mentioned. There may be a union involved that collectively bargains the pension. The union may be involved in the administration of the plan on a board of trustees. The administrator is the arm's-length body. Sometimes it's also the employer, is the same thing, who is responsible for the pension fund. And there's competing interests. And pensions is all about balancing those competing interests. How does this relate to ADR? Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Is compromise and compliance compatible? The employer has other interests as well, right? There's its shareholders that own the company. There's banks who lend the company money. If the employer is in trouble financially, the creditors bubble up to the surface, don't they? Anyone who's been involved in insolvency proceedings sees those coming to light. And if the pension fund is there, they want to ensure that it's a part of whatever restructuring there is. And because of the public interest that I mentioned, we have regulators. Pensions is a regulated area all across Canada. Every province has their own Pension Benefits Act and has their own regulator. We call them the Superintendent of Pensions, is what they are. And they're there to enforce the minimum standards in legislation and make sure that there's going to be money in a pension fund when someone retires at the end of the day. Now, the most human aspect of a pension is at the employee level. And at its core, pensions belong to families, right? Employees ultimately retire, they become pensioners, and then they die. And spouses are there. And pension legislation very strongly has priorities in favor of spouses. Survivor pensions, pre-retirement death benefits. And sometimes you have competing interests in that sphere of who receives that benefit between a beneficiary, the estate, a spouse, and ex-spouses as well. Because in the family world, pensions are often the largest asset of a marriage. And when there's a marriage breakdown, it's often worth more than the house, especially if you're in the public sector. And how can you equalize that property if it's not even payable yet? The pension may not be payable for years to come. How do we resolve that? Where's the access to justice there? I did a case around 10 years ago. It was the first time my eyes welled up with tears after receiving a decision. I represented a woman. Her name was Ann Stairs. She was the ex-spouse of a pension plan member, a teacher who worked in Ontario. They separated. They made a deal. And their deal was that she would receive a chunk of the pension when he retired. And if he died prior to retirement, then she would receive a part of the death benefit. That was right there in their agreement. It even said that if he was remarried at the time that he died, Ms. Stairs would still get, based on the formula that they negotiated, a chunk of the death benefit. Well, that in fact did happen. And she sent her separation agreement to the pension plan board, the administrator at the top of the triangle pyramid that I showed you before. She said, "Can I have my death benefit? I don't have much other income." And the plan said very sympathetically, "Yeah, no, I'm sorry, we can't. We have rules. We have minimum standards, and our rule says when a pension plan member dies in employment, it goes to whoever the spouse was at the time of death." And they paid the entire death benefit to the new spouse. Well, we went to a hearing, and in Ontario we have a tribunal to resolve the pension disputes. And it didn't stop there. And this went all the way to the Court of Appeal. And the Associate Chief Justice wrote the decision, and this is what brought tears to my eyes, and this is what actually is the right decision, which is, why can't you divide a pension? There's good public policy reasons to do so. It recognizes the economic reality of families. It provides flexibility in order to be able to resolve a very important piece of family property. And I'm very proud that this case led to legislative reform in Ontario, and we now have, 10 years later, pension splitting statements, family value statements that any spouse who separates can write to the plan administrator and say, how much is this pension worth? And not only that, the law now allows expressly for the pension to be paid out to an ex-spouse in accordance with a domestic contract or separation agreement, right? Compliance and compromise there can coexist, especially in the family world. Well, the same thing happened in the workplace. So I had another case, Imperial Oil, you know that company. Remember when they used to be in Toronto? Well, they moved their head office, remember, to Calgary, right here, a number of years ago. And when they closed down the head office, anyone remember it who's from Toronto? It's that nice building on St. Clair West. It's now called the Imperial Condos, is what it's called. So they let go a bunch of people who didn't make the move to Calgary. And under pension laws, if you're a mid-career employee and there's a major downsizing at an employer, there's a bit of a pension bump up that certain senior employees get. And the regulator, they're ordered that they get this bump up, and the employer disputed it, and I represented the employees, about 36 employees. And we went to a hearing, and on my side was the superintendent of pensions who was saying, yeah, these guys should get this bump up, and the employer said no. And midway through the hearing, what happened? We settled the case, right? 24 employees, each with arm's length, self-determination, came to a deal that they would get 50 cents on the dollar of the amount of this extra little bump up to the pension. And it'd be paid outside the pension plan just to make it economically efficient. Well, talk about the dynamic changing in the interest. The superintendent opposed our settlement. and said you can't do that because he believed that it violated the Pension Benefits Act, the minimum standard that said you got to get this bump up. And I said, what? You're going to make like 24 employees litigate with their former employer tens of thousands of dollars like poor Ms. Stairs had to do up to the Court of Appeal? Where's the access to justice there? So we actually turned the tables on the alignment, and it was we and the employer together took on the superintendent and just changed in the middle of the hearing. And the most powerful piece that came out of it is a line from the decision that could be from any case, regardless of the industry, regardless of what it's about. And it's basically the tribunal said, there's no guarantee you're rolling the dice in litigation. That's always the case. There's risk to both sides. There's cost to it all. The tribunal, and the first time I've ever seen it, ordered the superintendent to accept a settlement that arguably might have been outside the square box of what the minimum standards had to offer. And what are the lessons from this? Compromise and compliance. Are they incompatible? Is it in accordance with access to justice? Is the public interest met to require people to litigate? These are the kinds of questions that I'm really interested in as I pursue a mediation practice in the world of pensions. And I hope to continue this discussion with you later on at the reception. I have my website, mediationbenefits.co, not .com, not .ca. I got .co. And if you don't want to talk about pensions, we can talk about music. In my spare time, I co-own a record label, and I put music into TV shows and films, and we have bands across the country, including here in Alberta. So pensions or music, either one, I can talk about both, and I can talk about kids as well. I have a few of those hanging around as well. So anyway, thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here, and congratulations on everything.
Thank you very much, Ari.
Thank you.
Now, we do have time for about one quick question from the crowd. Is there anybody that has any questions?
Yeah, you're right.
All right, well,
Got it.
When it comes down to pension law, thank you very, very much. Ari.
Thanks, Don.
Okay.